Yeah, I'm Tim, former government lawyer, and now with Defend Our Juries. I've just been given a tiny bit more latitude by Howard in terms of time, just to set the context for this, the context for why this action is happening at all. And just going back to May of this year and asking where most people were on the previous government's so-called crackdown on protest and dissent. And I'm thinking about Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act, the 10 years imprisonment for any protest that caused any disturbance to anyone, for example, the Public Order Act, people being jailed just for using the words climate change in court in defiance of court order, or legal defences being removed from activists in court so that jury trials become sham trials. That's kind of where we were in May. And I remember even, I shouldn't say even, but it was interesting that even on the centre, let's say centre right of the press, seeing columns in the Times saying things like, whatever you think of these tofu munching wokerati, surely even they are entitled to explain why they did what they did in court. In other words, I think you could say in May, there was concern in quite a lot of parts of the country about what was happening to freedom of expression, protest, dissent, civil resistance. But not Lord Walney. Lord Walney, some of you will know him by his previous name, John Woodcock, left Labour under something of a cloud in 2018, appointed to the House of Lords by Boris Johnson in 2019. He issued a report in May that was presented to the public as the report of the government's independent advisor on political violence and disruption. And that's how it's been presented across the media. Lord Walney is, in fact, a paid lobbyist for both the arms and oil industries. That's well known. It's easy enough to look it up. Companies like Glencore, BP, Leonardo. Lord Walney felt the crackdown wasn't going far enough. Lord Walney's report wasn't predicting the very real political violence that broke out over the summer, the racist riots that had whole communities in fear of leaving their homes. No, what Lord Walney was concerned about was the groups who were challenging the interests of the companies who pay him, like Just Stop Oil and Palestine Action. And probably you remember a lot of the headlines around that. Lord Walney being a very reasonable person, he wasn't calling for the prescription of Just Stop Oil and Palestine Action as terrorist organizations. No, much more reasonable than that. Maybe treat them a bit like serious organized crime groups. That's the right kind of level. And you might wonder if anyone would take that seriously. You might wonder what influence that would have on the next government. But since Labour came to power in July, we have had dozens and dozens of people jailed, essentially for taking action to try and protect life, uphold international law, either from Just Stop Oil or from Palestine Action, following trials in which they've not been able to explain why they did what they did to the jury, in some cases after no trial at all, on remand, serving sentences equivalent to a year or more in jail without having been convicted of anything. All this in the midst of a prisons crisis. Some of those jail sentences for 4 or 5 years. And it's become so normal in a very short space of time that just a couple of Fridays ago, we had a colleague jailed for 3 years for peaceful act of resisting the oil industry. Not a word about it in the media, because that's normal now, normal. And we've seen journalists arrested on terrorism charges for reporting about what's happening in Gaza. And we're seeing signs of people being charged with offences of supporting serious organised crime groups, maybe for raising funds for Palestine action, this kind of thing. That is what is happening now in Britain. And the really scary thing, as I see it, is if I talk to, old college friends of mine outside what might think of as the bubble, they do not know about this. We are losing our freedoms, we are losing our rights, and the public in this country does not know what is happening. And that should scare us all, because it will not just be our movements, it'll be anyone who gets in the way of those industries. It'll be the unions next. It'll be journalists exposing the sorts of things we've seen with Grenfell or Post Office, with Fujitsu or Arconic. And in the name of democracy, we cannot let this go. And we're not going to let this go. We don't have the resources of those industries, so we've been working with what we've got. I mean, we've had supporters like Chris Packham, Dale Vince. They've written to the Attorney General and said, can we please have an open and transparent meeting to discuss what's happening, to discuss the UN saying that Britain is violating international law over what's happening, in contrast to all the behind closed doors meetings ministers are having with industry. No response. We've had thousands of people back that call for an open meeting. Delivered today to the Attorney General a petition of more than 60,000 names. Had rallies, no response. So we have no choice but to escalate. If we care about democracy, we care about our freedoms, that is what we're going to do. Starting next Friday, we will have a free exhibition on the public highway outside Southwark Crown Court. That's the scene of the sentencing of the Whole Truth Five, the group who were jailed for 4 or 5 years for being on a Zoom call, a bit like this. I hope this doesn't happen to us, but who knows? It's also the date that a few more Just Stop Oil people are being sentenced by the same judge, expecting jail. So we will be there at 12:30. It will be very quiet and it will be very dignified. The road is a cul-de-sac. We're not there to disrupt. We're there to get people talking. We will be upholding images of political prisoners across time and space, from Emmeline Pankhurst to Gandhi to Angela Davis to Martin Luther King, the people who have fought for our freedoms over time, but also those in jail and who've been in jail in the global south, people like Ken Saro-Wiwa, who've taken on the oil industry in other parts of the world. We will be holding up those images just to remind the public of what it is we are losing right now. And we will do it for a period of 90 minutes. We have designed the action to be in line with the Supreme Court's judgment in a case called Ziegler, so that we are within the rights of freedom of assembly, freedom of expression. It's lawful. We've had advice from independent lawyers. This is lawful. But the advice was also, in the current climate, prepare to be arrested. So we will prepare to be arrested. Whatever happens, we will keep going with this exhibition. We will keep touring it around important sites of law and democracy until we get that meeting, because it's important. And at that meeting, we will discuss the silencing and jailing of people who are telling the truth, and we will discuss why it is that oil and industry lobbyists are shaping our policy. That's the ambition for this. And all we ask, really, members of the press, whatever your perspectives on this, whatever your points of view on this, please be there, because this is too important not to talk about.